Today we're going to show you the roe grouse. It's a new species for our wingbeat family of models. This is Scottish red grouse that we hawk in Britain. The grouse season starts in a month's time. A lot of people are getting ready to train their falcons for waiting on flights at grouse. This model is exactly the same model as the roe crow, but it's painted differently. And on all of the models you'll notice that there is a little hook on the chest here. This little hook is there for automatic launching. Now when we're doing waiting on flights, it's opposite to crow hawking. So instead of slipping the model then the falcon after it underneath, we want our falcon to be waiting on and then flush the grouse from the ground under the falcon. It's the opposite way round. And we don't want the falcon up there to see me launching the grouse. It's got to be not in association with the falcon. It's just got to come from the ground. Same applies to the pheasant with goshawks. We want it separate from the falconer. To do that we need an automatic launcher. Today we're going to show you how that works. Matt, could you run us through the different bits?
Sure. So here on the ground we have all our different parts. It's amazingly simple. So we've just got a ramp and we've got a bit of elastic, and we're going to stretch that out along the floor, and we're going to use a release mechanism on a string that we pull, and this is going to throw our roe grouse straight into the air.
Okay, this ramp, launching ramp, where did it come from?
This is not from us. This is from a company called Hobby King, and they supply lots of remote control bits and pieces. But
we're not selling these, are we?
No, we've decided not to supply this. It's so simple, and most falconers might prefer to make it themselves anyway, with a few lengths of pipe.
Yeah, you can make your own.
So we've decided not to sell.
You just need something, 2 parallel rails, little launch angle, and off you go. Okay, yep.
So then we have our bit of elastic. So this is a long length of elastic tube. On this end we have the release mechanism, which we'll show you shortly, and on the other end we just have a loop. Now we're going to peg this loop, in this case 30 paces into the distance, with a great big meaty peg like this. Now when we set this up, this elastic is going to be under a lot of tension, and so it's really important to be a bit overkill and go for a great big chunky peg. If you go to use a tent peg, which is a sort of thin wire peg, under pressure that's going to come out the ground and it's going to come towards you very quickly, and you're going to know about it. So much better to use something chunky. And of course if you're on a grouse moor or any other sort of uneven surface, the last thing you want is a little peg coming out of the ground. On the other end here we have our release mechanism, and this goes into our second peg, and this is just a bit of key ring, and this goes through our peg here, and then we have a high-tech nail.
And then I just pull it and out it comes.
Out it comes.
You get a nice clean trigger release. That is seriously high-tech, but it's not as high-tech as my wind speed gauge, which is a combined wind speed gauge, wind direction gauge and gust gauge. It's wind powered, very cheap to run, but you may laugh, it's important. When we set this up, it's important that we launch straight into wind and that we have a good smooth laminar airflow. We don't want to set it up where the air is all turbulent beyond the wood. So I'm going to take my wind gauge, I'm going to march off into the wind. That'll tell us our line, then we'll set it up.
Sure, perfect. So we've got the end of our elastic cord. Here we've got our thin metal clip. That goes through our peg, and then we put the nail through the clip, and that holds everything in place. Now the bit of elastic we're using for this is about 17 foot long, and I've stretched it about 4 times its length. But it's only through practice that you figure that out, and the first time that I did it I was really timid and hardly stretched it at all, and our roe grouse flopped into the floor about 4 foot off the end of the ramp. So just practice and see how you get on. you can see at the end of the elastic it stops here, and then we go into some normal cord. So it's elastic until probably about the last foot and a half, and then from the cord join here I have a really thin bit of line. This is like probably 1 or 1.2 mil, the sort of material we'd use for acryans, and that makes our loop. And that is the loop that goes over the hook on the chest of our grouse. That hooks on like so, and then when I lie the grouse down, I just pull him down the ramp a little bit because I want there to be a tiny bit of tension in this cord. If it's slack, the elastic pulls the model, and then there's a tiny fractional delay before the model moves, and that causes things to wobble. So you want everything to have a little bit of tension in it. But that's more or less all set up. So the roe grouse is already switched on, the stabilizer is on, we have the loop hooked onto the model, there's enough tension in it, we're into the wind, and so the only thing left to do is pull the nail out and start the motor.
We've shown you how to do the automatic launch. You can actually do this single-handed, just on your own. With the clearance line going to the trigger peg, you can walk away 20-30 yards so that you're not associated with the flushed prey. If your goshawk or your falcon waiting on is ready, you don't want to link it with you as the falconer. You don't want to see it being launched. So you can do that very simply. You can put it on the ground, have a loop on your boot, have a little foot pedal, stick it in your belt, whichever you like, just enough to pull the cord. You can have the transmitter on a lanyard if you want, and that leaves your left fist free for your hawk. So you can do it all yourself, and Matt, you can do it yourself. I'm out of this.
Sure.